Raider Nation, brace yourselves. Something big is happening inside the silver and black, and it could change everything for one of our starting linemen, Dylan Parham, a name every true Raider fan knows. He's been a reliable presence on the O-line since day one, but this off-season, the ground under his cleats might be starting to shift. Parham is entering the final year of his rookie contract. After 3 years of starting for the Raiders, he now faces uncertainty, with reports suggesting he could lose his starting role. According to The Athletic, Alex Cappa has emerged as the early favorite to start at right guard this season. That's the same spot Parham held down last year. Let's not forget, Parham showed versatility early in his career, lining up at left guard and stepping in where needed. But in a contract year, being pushed out of the starting lineup could have major consequences for his future, whether with the Raiders or another team in 2026. And here's the twist. If Parham doesn't win that starting role, the Raiders might look to trade him rather than let him walk for nothing. It's not because he's not talented, he absolutely is. But with a new coaching staff and front office, big decisions are being made fast, and no one's position is guaranteed. If I were Dylan Parham or part of his camp, I'd be thinking hard about this offseason, and maybe even pushing for a trade. Why? Because this is about timing, about value, about cashing in on 3 years of experience in the trenches. If Parham wants to secure a big contract in 2026, he can't afford to ride the bench. Let's break it down. Parham has survived constant shakeups. 3 head coaches and 4 offensive line coaches in just a few seasons. First drafted by Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, he's now facing a completely new era under Pete Carroll and GM John Spytek. And while Parham has stayed professional through all the changes, the writing might be on the wall. The Raiders recently signed Alex Cappa to a 1-year $5 million deal, a classic prove-it contract. But Cappa has connections in the building, and that matters. NFL decisions aren't just made on tape, they're made on trust, history, and relationships. Kappa's history with Spytek and others in the organization gives him a head start, and that's why Parham's starting spot is in serious jeopardy. Sure, he might still have a shot at left guard, especially if Cappa locks down the right side. That would pit him against Jordan Meredith and Caleb Jones in camp. Winnable battles, no doubt. But even then, it's no guarantee. And here's the reality. If Parham isn't locked in as a starter by training camp, the Raiders must seriously consider trading him. You don't let a young, versatile lineman with 30-plus starts just sit. Other teams would gladly take a proven guard who can play multiple spots. That's value the Raiders shouldn't ignore. And the draft? Yeah, the Raiders added more talent there too. We'll talk about that next. The Raiders didn't just quietly add depth this offseason. They made a loud statement with their draft choices. They used 2-day 2 picks, valuable assets, on offensive linemen, Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant. That's not random, that's strategy. And it speaks volumes about where this front office sees the future of the offensive line. Caleb Rogers is especially intriguing. He played left tackle, left guard, and right tackle in college. That kind of versatility is rare, and it's the exact trait that made Dylan Parham valuable in the first place. But when a team spends top 100 picks on players with overlapping skill sets, it's not just for depth. It's a signal that change is coming. The Raiders could have filled other needs, free safety, linebacker, but instead they doubled down on the trenches. That shows how seriously Pete Carroll and GM John Spytek value line play. Here's the key. Drafting Rogers and Grant gives the Raiders options. They can develop both players behind veterans, or they can start fresh with youth. Either way, Parham becomes part of a bigger question. Is he part of the long-term plan? And if the answer isn't a confident yes, then trading him, while his value is still high, starts to make a lot of sense. We've got more reasons coming up for why the Raiders could be preparing to move on from a 3-year starter. And trust me, it's not just about numbers, it's about vision. Let's talk about the money, because contracts always matter when it comes to potential trades. Dylan Parham is entering the final year of his rookie deal. That's a key detail. It means if the Raiders want to trade him, now's the time. They'd save $3.7 million in cap space by moving him, while the acquiring team would get him on a cheap one-year prove-it deal. And with only $228,000 in dead money, there's minimal risk for Vegas. So what does this mean? It means Parham has trade value, especially for teams looking to boost their O-line before camp. Teams reshuffle rosters all the time after June 1st, and again right before final cuts in August. And a guy like Parham, who can play multiple spots, becomes a prime target. But there's more to it. The Raiders might not rush into a deal. They know how brutal the season can be in the trenches. Injuries pile up. Having depth on the offensive line isn't a luxury. It's survival. So keeping Parham into the regular season, even if he's not starting, could be a smart play. If I had to guess, watch the NFL trade deadline. That's when a playoff hopeful might be desperate enough to offer a solid return. The Raiders could hold on to Parham as insurance, and if things unfold the right way, flip him mid-season to a team that's hurting up front. Smart teams play the long game, and the Raiders just might be setting up their next move. If Dylan Parham isn't starting by mid-season, the most likely time for a trade is the NFL trade deadline. That's when teams get desperate. Injuries stack up, playoff pictures get clearer, and rosters shift. Now, let's be real. Parham's not a big-name player. He's not going to trend on social media or lead off SportsCenter. But around the league, teams respect what he brings. And that's where trade value comes in. Look at the resume. In just 3 seasons, Parham started nearly 3,000 snaps, despite playing under 2 head coaches, multiple offensive line coaches, and some of the most inconsistent quarterback play in the league. Still, he's managed to hold his ground as a dependable starter. His versatility is a big reason why. He's played left guard, center, and right guard. That kind of flexibility is rare, especially in a league where depth is everything. And he's been durable, avoiding major injuries and staying available. Here's the knock: strength. Parham needs to bulk up. If he can add 10 to 15 pounds of muscle this offseason, he'll be in a better spot to compete physically. But even without that, he still graded out well last year with a 74.5 PFF grade over 882 snaps. Yes, the 36 pressures allowed is a red flag. That number needs to come down. But it's hard to ignore the context. A revolving door at quarterback, shifting offensive schemes, and unstable coaching. He also gave up 5 sacks and committed 3 penalties. Not ideal, but again, not disastrous considering the chaos around him. And the versatility: 59% of career snaps at left guard, 7% at center, 34% at right guard. That kind of flexibility gives him real value in trade talks. No, he's not your future left tackle, but he can be your interior Swiss Army knife. And for a team in need, that's gold. While Dylan Parham had a few snaps at right tackle back at Memphis, his real value in the NFL is as an interior lineman, and that's exactly why teams will be watching him closely this offseason. So, where could he go? Based on current needs across the league, here are 6 realistic trade destinations. New England Patriots, strong ties to former Raiders GM Dave Ziegler and coach Josh McDaniels. Tennessee Titans, another McDaniels connection, plus offensive line depth issues. Baltimore Ravens, injuries have hurt their O-line. They value smart, versatile players like Parham. Houston Texans, their interior line needs reinforcement to protect young star C.J. Stroud. Indianapolis Colts could use reliable depth and competition at guard. Seattle Seahawks, always looking to strengthen the trenches, especially with versatile depth. Now, let's talk trade value. If the Raiders decided to move on from Parham, here's a realistic trade package. Raiders receive 2026 fifth-round pick other team receives, Dylan Parham, and a 2026 seventh-round pick. It's a modest return, but fair, especially for a player entering a contract year. Would it be worth it? That depends. If the Raiders fully believe in Caleb Rogers, Charles Grant, Jordan Meredith, and trust that Alex Kappa can stay healthy, then yes, it makes sense to move Parham and free up cap space. But if Parham is still viewed as a potential starter or critical depth piece, trading him now could be a risk. Either way, his value around the league is clear. He's experienced, flexible, and available. That's a rare combo, especially for teams in win-now mode.